All right, let's make a formal introduction for our listeners. Good afternoon, Loreena. My name
Hi.
is Claudio, and I'm calling you from Washington, D.C., from the Swiss Fairfax City. We are very grateful that Loreena McKennitt accepted our invitation to our show. Loreena, welcome to the show.
Thank you. It's great to be with you.
Thank you. The first question, you're going to be releasing a new album in March the 8th, called The Road Back Home is the name of the album. What does it mean, the term home, quote unquote, for you?
Well, I've been thinking about the concept of home for many years now. I remember reflecting on it when I was working on An Ancient Muse, that home is much more than the structure that you go to sleep in or eat or. A home for me is it's kind of like a set of circumstances. It's a network of rituals and traditions and habits that involve a wide selection of people that you come to know and often care about. So being home is being in that place where those interactions can happen. So, when I think about it in relation to this recording, certainly it was like I grew up in Manitoba and I didn't encounter Celtic music until I attended a folk music club in Winnipeg in the late 70s. And I spent a lot of time, very meaningful time there, learning pieces, and we were swapping albums. So in a musical sense, for me, that was kind of like the original home of we went to this place every Sunday night and we'd be together and we'd make music. So that experience in itself was a kind of home. So having pursued the history of the Celts that has taken me all over the world, it's interesting to reflect back. The image of the cover reminds me of all the various journeys and places, and then this whole sentiment of coming back to the little nestled village of people that you know. So that is all part of the experience of home.
Yeah. How difficult in general term, how difficult was for you to, I don't know, put the first album, the second, the third, because then after the third album, when you end up releasing The Visit, then your life, changed from here to there, right? So were you prepared to, I don't know, fame or
No, not
sales,
really.
more money or more touring, more demands?
Mhm. I mean, things grew in a very slow, organic way from 1985 when I made my first recording to 91 when I signed a licensing deal with the Warner Music Group here in Canada. In 85, I made my first recording in a week. I borrowed the money my parents had carefully saved for my veterinarian studies that I didn't go on to do and made that recording. I ran off 30 cassettes. I gave about 15 of them away. And then I thought, well, what am I going to do with the other 15? So I busked. I played at a market in Toronto on Saturday mornings and played a 20-minute set, and I would give or sell these cassettes and so on. But that process grew where as retail was acquiring them on consignment across Canada. I was starting to make inroads into small distributors in Europe. So this all grew in a very organic way until after my third recording, Parallel Dreams, in 1989. And by that time, I was able to afford putting myself on tour with 3 or 4 other musicians and a couple crew members. We had transferred going from cassette to CD. That was a big expenditure. And I remember the deal that I had with Warner Music Group was a very unusual one, largely because I had developed the capacity to finance my own recordings, and I didn't find it necessary to borrow money from the Warner company in order to make my recordings or go on tour. But still in all, it felt like a very gradual, slow burn until that time. And I remember this showcase in Toronto where they invited, retailers, radio people, print people, and so on. And I performed about 4 songs. nothing terribly commercially attractive like The Lady of Shalott and Bonnie Portmore and Between the Shadows. But I knew that something special had happened that particular night. And I remember one of the Warner representatives taking me back to a hotel where I was staying. And I got in the car and I remember just feeling like my life was going to change. And it was probably going to change dramatically. And I have to confess, I cried. I wasn't totally thrilled to death because I'm probably still a veterinarian at heart. I don't have much of an appetite for fame or all of that. But I could tell that my circumstances were going to change. And then innately, I knew for my own psychological well-being, it would be important for me to continue to do the music that was true to me and I was true to it, and to keep control of my career so I could always do it on my terms. And that's something, it's meant continuing to live in a rural setting on a farm in southern Ontario.
Oh, thank you very much. How are you able to maintain your sanity? Because, 50 years later, I have interviewed a lot of, rock and roll stars, and people do a lot of stuff. They cheat on their wife or many marriages, or they lost all the money. They trust their friend. They do drugs. They do a lot of stupid stuff. So with being good in what you do, you became famous and privacy get out of the way, and you need to run a business. How you keep your sanity and to because it's not that easy to do. Some people would love to be famous, but they don't know what it takes, and the state of mind you need to be in order to, because I don't know, go and see a restaurant with some friends, right? Or go and see a movie. In some cases, you cannot do it, because everybody will ask you for an autograph or this, or interrupt you, or whatever, So
Yeah.
how you manage?
Well, I think those years from 85 to 91 were such an education in all the bricks in the road that make a successful career. There was no mystery. There was absolutely no mystery. It became a very personal how much hard work was involved in learning about retail and pricing and publicity, how to produce a concert, how to produce a tour. This was a lot of education by rolling up my sleeves. I mean, I had actually a couple of excellent books. So it was, I think the fact that my success came when I was more than 30 years old. I wasn't like Justin Bieber, my other Stratford, Ontario resident, who was a teenager. I was in my 30s, so early 30s, and I could understand. I understood by that time. I was mature enough to understand what was all involved in making a successful career, and the fact that I just kept control of the reins. I often say that I don't have a manager because I'm unmanageable. And that's probably true. But I needed to, I could see how the industry could really take you in places and directions that you may not want to go. And I just couldn't contemplate that. So it keeps you real. It keeps you very real. All the details of running a business and staying in a business in an industry that has gone through incredible changes. And I would say part of the industry, which is about the commodification of the music and selling it, that half has just collapsed. I mean, that half has just really collapsed. So all that remains is a touring and performance part.
Yeah, unfortunately, like you say, it's correct, right? If you were people buying CDs, vinyl, or extended issue, I'm not that one, because I buy a lot of stuff, and but I know that some people cannot afford it, and you are forced to tour, right? You have bills to pay, and it's expensive as well, tour. And so how you manage? Well, you have $2 million will cost you half record and investment, whatever the number happens to be, right? But that's unfortunately you need to control. When you start like a new album, I imagine that you do a lot of a lot of research, I suppose, right? In
Yeah, a handful of years ago now, I was kind of leading into the next, what I call studio recording, the next chapter of the history of the Celts, of which The Visit, The Mask and Mirror, The Book of Secrets, and Ancient Muse were that whole journey. The other recordings in between were specialized projects. So I went to Rajasthan in India to pursue some of those very, very earliest Eastern connection to the Celts. Um, but there were a couple of things. One was just family demands as well as just running the ship. But also because of that collapse of that front part of there isn't actually a strong business argument to be making certainly expensive recordings. And my recordings, certainly since, let's say, The Mask and Mirror, The Book of Secrets, and Ancient Muse, are more expensive because they have more different kinds of musicians and instruments, and whether it's the St. Petersburg choir at the front of Dante's Prayer, or there was a bit of an orchestra involved in Two Trees on Mask and Mirror. So the spectrum of instruments, the more exotic instruments that I like to weave into the arrangement, that's just a very expensive way of painting pictures. But at the same time, I feel that that's part of what has made my music less common and for some people more interesting. So we'll see. It's the common question to most interviews is but in the meantime, we kind of release these specialized projects. There's this one. We made a Christmas winter project a few years ago during COVID called Under Winter's Moon. So they're all very specialized projects. But I would love to get back to execute that piece that was inspired by the exploration of the Celts to India, because there's some really interesting things there. We'll see.
Okay, thank you. What's your motivation to keep on going and keep on releasing and keep on touring? I imagine at your level, eventually, you want to retire, or you say, well, touring is tough. You do 20 cities in different day, bus, waking up in the morning, go to a hotel, sleeping, waking up in the morning, oh, somebody's sick, somebody is not on the bus, and so forth, and, more headache for you. And you do a show, the same thing the next day. Okay, now we have a day off, but taking a day off, moving on the equipment, moving with the people is very expensive, right? So you need to try to jam as many shows you can within 30 days without going crazy, right?
Because,
yeah.
I mean, first of all, I love playing music with the other musicians. It's just a pure joy. It's just a pure joy, night after night after night. So whether there's an audience there or not, just playing with that caliber of musicians, it's just purely a pleasure. I mean, I guess, certainly I am kind of at a stage of my life and career that I could pack it in. I was thinking that might be possible a few years ago. But at the same time, I thought, well, if there's still an appetite for my music, if I can keep a sort of balanced life in order to do that, then, why not? As well as keeping certain family responsibilities whole. And I suppose, there are a lot of people who can contact us and say just how much my music means to them. So there's even a bit of what would the word be? I'm trying to find what the right word be, but it's going out and doing something for other people too. I certainly, obviously, as I said earlier, I don't do it for the fame. It's the least attractive part of it, but it's that opportunity to connect with people in a real way that is so unique and special. And that is one of the extraordinary things about music, that you can connect in a very, very special way. So that it's a great privilege. It's a great, great privilege to be able to do that.
Absolutely. I noticed when I went to see you the last three times here in DC that people are not allowed to take picture or film or stuff like that, which in many ways is great. We live in the world with technology, AI, phones everywhere, and people don't enjoy it. I mean, they are on the taking picture or filming half the show. They are not enjoying the moment. They're filming video that they will never see again. And they want to post it, so Facebook, this or that, whatever. It's crazy now the way we live now.
Yeah,
People.
the unregulated technology has really
Yeah,
changed us as a species.
yeah,
And you've probably done enough research on me to know that how harsh I have very, very harsh feelings about it. I'm
sure.
very I'm encouraged that there are governments that are getting on with regulating them. It's extremely hard because, of course,
Mm,
they've had an unfettered landscape for over 20 years, whether it has to do with the music industry or publishing, or whether it has to do with child development and all the online harms, whether it has to do with other businesses or indeed our very democracies. I think they're completely and utterly under threat because the unregulated tech companies have put their product out into the public
mm,
without being obliged to know how to do that safely and responsibly, like many drug companies are encouraged to do, or anybody making a car. So yeah, I feel it's changed. I feel the general public has been victimized by this.
mm,
It started at schools. They were very clever to sell this technology in at a very, very young age in educational settings, intimidating parents and educators, thinking, oh, this will be the way of the future. You don't want your Johnny and Susie be left behind. And so these poor children are in kindergarten or with these tablets. And there's absolutely no research to show that they're stronger human beings or more intelligent as a result of that, but to the contrary,
mm.
because parents haven't known how to manage these devices themselves at home. There's all kinds of content, addictive content, bullying content, and so on. So it's when it comes to concerts. I don't want to berate people. I will say, when there are flashes to the stage in a very dark environment, it is quite psychologically interrupting for a performer to deal with. But now there's a lot of cameras that don't need flashes. Still, all the same, people forget that there's often people sitting behind them that are having to see the screens, and those customers behind are compromised by their experience. And then finally reminding people, look, we're in this space together right now, and you don't want any piece of technology and interface denying your brain of the special multiple sensory input and experience that we can have. You don't want to have every life experience mediated by this technology. And so but as I say, I try to gently and diplomatically encourage people, but then, I just leave it. I'm not going to get into a big battle. It's
It,
sad.
it need to come from parents as well, right? So a parent, instead of putting the kid 5-year-old in front of the TV while the parents are shopping or wherever, or allowing 3 or 4 hours on devices, kids to one another here on the furniture there, instead of talking, how do they know they're texting?
I
And
know.
so forth. There's so much, I don't know, I suppose the school can do go with it, but it needs to come from parents. I mean,
Yeah,
technology is great if you don't know how to use it. Technology is great if you limit your kids to phone or texting half an hour a day at the end of the
yeah.
day, right? And so on and so forth, right? So
Well,
it,
those of us who knew a good swath of our life without this technology see this very, very clearly. But we already have a generation of parents who were born in the early 80s. And so they were swept up in this, and they didn't know as much of an analog existence as perhaps we have.
sure.
And they've been as harmed and contaminated as well. But I would agree, ultimately, it should be up to parents. there are many parents who are single, working, they're just surviving. And I say that there should be very serious laws, like there are tobacco laws with respect to children. There's no need for children to have these devices in their hands until maybe the age of 17 or 18. And that there's nothing that you can't learn quickly. Even the folks in Silicon Valley will admit that there's a lot of this can be learned very, very quickly. But what you want to have are well-rounded children and youth that are not addicted or compromised by this. But it's a big money-generating line
course,
item, stock exchange.
of course, keep on pharmaceutical company, they don't want you to be, they want you to be treated, but no cure, because otherwise they will run out of business, right? If it was a cure for cancer out there, maybe it should not be public, because then, the company, pharmaceutical company will be out of business. We live in crazy time. I'm curious about how Celtic languages in general have influenced your writing. Many languages for me, being from Latin America, they're difficult. Of course, I don't speak them. They're difficult to understand and difficult to pronounce. But how, let's say you go to Ireland, right? And you listen to a lot of people or see a lot of images, you go to a library, how you take a particular theme and make it your own to be incorporated into a song in an album. What's the great possible?
I'm really I regret that I've not yet been able to learn let's say Gaelic of some kind. Years ago, when I first moved here in 1981 to Stratford, I started to learn a Gaelic piece. Never learned it completely enough to perform it. For me, because there's something really special about original languages, the aesthetic of them and the sound. So I've not really been able to incorporate that, but rather I've felt over the years my lyric writing is not the strongest thing that I do. So I've looked to other authors like Shakespeare or Tennyson or Alfred Noyes or St. John of the Cross for lyrics and to set those poems to music.
I got you. By the way, your latest album, a couple tracks have been released, and I listened to it. That's a masterpiece, Loreena. Everything that I say about you, they're very, very good.
Kind.
And I have, I don't know, lucky that I grew up in a family in Chile that my dad have a lot of music, so I've been listening to, I don't know, 2 hours a day from the last 50 years, and I own about 15,000 record vinyl rooms everywhere. Music has given me so much satisfaction in my life. I don't know how to do music. I don't know how to sing. I don't know how to play an instrument, but music has given me so much satisfaction. And I was telling you before, maybe the world's coming to an end with, Israel and Palestine, Ukraine, and this, but this album, The Visit, and especially this extended edition with 4 CDs and this is a masterpiece. I know you don't want to brag about yourself, Loreena, but before the world comes to an end, everybody needs to listen to it because it's very, very good, very, very good.
Thank you. No, we really enjoyed putting it, looking at all the material and putting it all together and trying to make it into something special. It really was a crossover point in my career, The Visit, particularly in North America, less so in Europe, because my career hadn't, it wasn't until The Mask and Mirror that things got more developed in Europe. Although Brittany in France had done a tremendous job in selling The Visit. But thank you.
No problem. I have only a couple of questions. You're going to be touring, you go to Europe next week, actually, March the 9th.
We leave on Saturday. We leave on Saturday to go for rehearsal.
Good for you. Good for you. Good for you. Man, most of the shows are sold out already. So
yeah,
unbelievable, man. The people that will be great. And I think you're doing 2 legs, right? You're doing like 20 shows, then resting for a couple months, and then you do another second tour in Europe and in the fall. Is it possible for you to, a question I asked before, people in Latin America, Argentina, Chile, Mexicans are dying. They want to see you. It's possible to organize something in the
It's
fall or
very
whatever.
much on our radar, very, very much on
Yeah.
radar. We could tour much, much more than we do. Part of what also what keeps me home are certain family responsibilities, and I actually
Yeah.
can't be away. I'm hoping that that maybe it might be the next year's 25. Lost track of time. 25. I can't remember. Anyway, I think there's going to be another year that would pass before we could get there. Yeah. It's really, I just feel so badly because I don't, where there are people that would like us to come, I want to go there. I want to go there and make that connection. And when we were there in whatever year it was, 2017 maybe or so, 18, it was a wonderful time. I remember going down to Neruda's house.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. I've always wanted to set one of his poems to music, just because. But anyway, we would love to come to Mexico and Argentina and Chile, and we'll see.
We'll see. If anything I can do to help you, make you change your mind and go into it at the end of 24 instead of 25, I'm willing to help. Yeah, Naru is unbelievable, guys. It's
The other reality factor here is that there's Mark, who you met. I've got another colleague, Errol, and there's myself. And then I've got a financial comptroller who would normally be here, but she's in the east coast of Canada because she's caring for her mother. We're a very, very small team. And then we hire particular consultants or people to help us build. We've got an agent in the UK, and then we get a tour manager, and so we build. But the bulk of the work really falls to Mark, myself, and Errol, and the three of us. So this is the most demanding time because we finished the fall tour and there's still administrative processes tidying up from that. We're finishing the building of this tour we're about to do, then execute it, and then we'll be finishing up building the summer tour and executing it. And this is the price of me managing things, on my own with such a small team. If there was a manager, that would help things in some ways. In other ways, it wouldn't. So that's just a little bit of a background of what limits us from touring as much as we could. We have to have breaks for our own sanity and then for our family's sanity. So, but I tell you, the will is very, very much there. Very much there. I think it was when we were reviewing the touring landscape, is just even maybe 3 weeks ago, South America was very much talked about.
Yeah, I hope you. I hope it happened. If it's not in 24, in 25. Loreena, I want to read something that I read that somewhere in one of the interviews you have done. It's beautiful. Dan, it says, "To love Loreena is to love music. To love music is to love life. Loreena, thank you for all the beauty you have given the world over the years."
Oh, that's really lovely.
Yeah, thank you very much, Loreena, and
thank you.
hopefully we'll connect. I'm going to be in Europe in a couple of weeks, so I will try to make time to see one of the concerts. I'm going to be in London, right? So
okay. Well, if you do,
I will try to go. And I became very good friend with Caroline Lavelle as well. And we need to coordinate her to go for dinner. And we couldn't do it last year because with the COVID stuff, it's a lot of restrictions. But we'll try to. But I will let you know if I would love to meet you one day personally and
that would be really wonderful.
Get a cup of coffee, whatever will be very nice.
Perfect.
You're a fantastic lady. You're doing great. I'm glad that you need to stay healthy, Loreena, because we need the whole world need Loreena and the band for many, many years to come. So
we're trying.
Don't retire, keep staying healthy.
Thank you so much, Claudia. I hope you make it over, and I hope we do meet when you're there. And if not, we'll meet another time. But I appreciate all your support.
No problem. Thank you very much. Appreciate it. Have a great afternoon, and good luck in the tour.
Thank you.
Sure.
Bye. Bye.